What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? The phenomenon.
Femininomenon
is here.
I don't know why it's not just femininomenon. Or
Yeah, phenomenon would work.
Femininomenon. I told my wife the same thing. She's like, I don't disagree, but the internet decided.
Fuck the internet. It's No, man, now I don't even remember what it was supposed.
Femininomenon is like what you would think it would be. Femininomenon, I don't know. It just sounds
like
longer and
synonym.
Synonym. Yeah.
Can you feel the Kamala No, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Can you feel the Kamala mentum?
For everybody confused, this was our opening line. It was supposed to be the phenomenon is here. Can you feel the Kamala mentum? And he wrote that one. This is all Taylor's fault. This was horrible.
I just been on the internet a little too much for the past week and a half. I also have as the title Kamala the Momala Harris.
I also don't. Is she a mom?
She's not a mom.
I was gonna say because JD Vance is like very upset that she's not a mom.
Yeah, no, she's the mom. She's the mother of that America needs right now.
She's America's MILF.
That
one might have been a little too sexist. I'm sorry. That was out of line.
Yeah, you're basically as bad as Fox News now.
Damn it. Man.
So, yeah, big news, obviously. It's pretty common now, but Joe Biden stepped down as the nominee for the Democratic ticket. Technically, Kamala has only been endorsed to be
right.
She's the presumptive nominee at this point.
But she has all the delegates she needs. She will be the nominee. There's unless something
I would bet my 401k on it, you know.
Unless something prolific happens, heaven forbid she was killed or had some sort of situation where she was no longer physically capable of serving, or something truly damning came out from her past that would make her,
which I would think already would have come out by now.
Yeah. I mean, Republicans are desperately searching for anything that they can find.
Right. She's been directly a candidate or a part of 5 major races at this point.
Yeah. So
yeah.
She's been fairly well vetted, I would say. So
you could say qualified even.
Could you? Oh my God. So right before I came here, I was filming a video because somebody tagged me in it that a guy's like, Kamala is not qualified to be president, and I'm going to tell you why.
Oh boy.
Because Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution says he will hold the oath of office. Specifically he, and I was like, my God, really? This is what you're going with?
She's not qualified because she doesn't have a dick.
Right, but the funny thing is, it's not even an accurate interpretation, because Article 2 is what lays out the qualifications to run for president, and that solely refers to the potential candidate as persons. So, the person needs to be 35 years old, a natural-born citizen. It's all person. They say person 3 times, don't mention he. And even if they did mention he, in the 18th century, which is when they wrote the Constitution, he was a gender-neutral term. It wasn't masculine until basically halfway through the 20th or 19th century.
Man, I don't know, but that just sounds like fake news, and the Constitution is woke as fuck. Persons, come on. Persons, that sounds like some, SJW shit.
Somebody in the comments on the live is like, oh, now they care about pronouns.
Love it. So,
all right. So Biden stepping aside this far through the election is a first.
It's a first, and it's stupid that we got 100 days from the election and we're just now switching major candidates.
Yeah. But is it stupid? Is the question? Because first I was very, very apprehensive about this. Coming into this, I was like, Kamala I don't have great feelings about Kamala as a candidate in general. As a progressive, not my favorite candidate in the world. And her approval ratings as vice president were abysmal, worse than Biden's. in hypothetical matchups against Trump at the time, worse than Biden's. And I was like, it made me feel real uneasy. I'm like, you don't switch up an incumbent. An incumbent is like always your ace in the hole unless something really bad happens. Of course, the debate was really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was like contra bad, for Jimmy Carter.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
it was for.
So I mean, I think like the rest of people on the left, we were feeling pretty. We had pretty low morale about the whole situation. It was really hard to rally around Biden at the time. And
Yeah.
Kamala didn't feel like a great option to me. And I'm like, what else are we going to do? Because there's no way we could have ran a primary after half the primary season, or most of the primary season is over,
Yeah.
In fact, the entire primary season is over.
Whole primary
season is over.
In 3 weeks, they're hosting the convention.
Yeah.
So
I was very, very apprehensive about this move.
yeah, I had the same feeling. Like, I remembered talking to all my family members, a lot of them being conservative, and them being like, "Oh, Biden sucks," right? I'm like, "Yeah, he does," and they're probably gonna, if they do change, they'll probably choose Kamala. And I was like, I don't think that's a winning strategy either.
Right.
And now we're sitting here,
yeah,
and
I do feel like we may have been proven wrong. I feel like
yes, yeah,
and I'm gonna go out and say that I'm really good at reading and interpreting the past, and looking at the situations from multiple perspectives and bringing that in. I am horrible at predicting the future. Absolutely horrible. Like every time, I'm like, Donald Trump never win. I was wrong.
Well,
obviously,
you weren't alone there.
Yeah, I know. But every time I try to predict political futures, like I was like, oh, they'll never overturn Roe. Like there's absolutely no way they're going to do that. I almost died on that hill because everybody's like, oh, it's a big deal. This is coming. I'm like, nah, it's not. Y'all are freaking out for nothing. And then I'm like, wow, I was the asshole in this one,
So more of the story, if from now on, if you have a prediction, I should just immediately take the opposite side.
Yep.
That's fair.
Uh-huh.
Because either way, we'll...
one of us will be right, that works.
Okay, I will say, though, I think they could have replaced Biden with basically anybody on the short list, and I would feel this happy about it.
Probably, but I am impressed at the reaction just from the party as a whole. I haven't seen galvanization like this around a candidate since Obama, and even then, I don't know if it was this enthusiastic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It feels like there's just a ton of support that came out of nowhere that certainly wasn't really coming around Biden as much. They kind of expected him to, be a president and talk normally and fight for himself a little bit, especially being the incumbent. So I agree, but I also think it would have been the same for anybody else that was a major possible candidate.
I don't know because
I don't know what like is special about Kamala other than that she was already the VP. Like I don't know that like she has anything about her that is like really unique or like intriguing.
I mean,
other than she's a black woman,
right?
So, like,
but I
like,
do think
fine.
that does seem to be rallying black women to organize in a way that again we haven't seen in a long time.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Which I think is impressive.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't know if another candidate, especially a delegate picked candidate rather than a primary picked candidate, but even then a primary picked candidate because it's almost better this way because if we did run a primary, we would have had, probably a Bernie, not specifically Bernie, but a Bernie-esque candidate versus an establishment candidate, and a lot of time to build animosity towards the candidate that would end up winning. Where we didn't have that here. We have this is our option. We know what our alternative is, and that's pretty strong. I do want to point out, because somebody who's a little butthurt in the comments here said maybe the left's severe lack of principles was underestimated, and I'm assuming little Patrick here in the comments is referring to the fact that we didn't run a primary, and they're like, oh, the Democratic Party not being democratic, yada yada yada, because they all failed history class and didn't realize that delegates picking the president was how it was done for the entirety of our nation's history until 1968.
Yeah.
Whatever, after
Well, and
1968.
that's like the first thing I said was she's still the presumptive nominee.
Yeah.
I believe I said that.
Yeah.
Technically has not been voted in and can and will not be voted in until the delegates choose her at the convention. So
yeah.
You can fuck
But I mean,
off.
like, we didn't get the chance to vote. And I mean, but in a way we did, because she was still on the ticket. So Biden-Harris won the nomination.
Right.
She won the nomination with Biden.
I mean, I didn't vote for Biden to win the nomination.
I mean, I didn't
It's
go.
like-
I mean, I always say vote in primaries, but this primary is like that's the dumbest fucking waste of time.
Well, right.
Like,
When you got the incumbency, it's like this one I thought in particular, if you were ever going to run against an incumbent with the primary, this would have been the one. And then we don't end up in a situation like this. Not that I'm saying that, like, I agree with you. I think that the fact that it is kind of so quick and we don't have that much time is galvanizing a lot of people. I don't know if that's like a strong strategy to like play long term.
I mean, I don't think that this should be the strategy every year, but I think in the situation we were in, we went in with, we have, Father Time running for president, and he's
Father times father.
Father times father, yeah. Father times grandpappy was up there running for president, and it's like we don't, another 4 years of this, it's like we're gonna end up with there's no way that he was going to keep it together for another 4 years. We're hoping he keeps it together another 6 months to get through the goddamn election.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that was kind of an unprecedented time, and we welcomed somebody who was, born after Jesus rose from the dead.
Right.
And she's still a fucking boomer, man.
She's 59.
Yeah, she's on the young side of a boomer, but she's still a boomer.
Oh, I thought she was Gen X. I could be wrong though. I just assumed.
I think she's a last year boomer. I think she's 64.
Okay. She's a trying to mix boomer and Gen X.
Yeah, 1964. So that would make her. I mean, she'd basically be Jen Jones if we're like talking about transition generations.
She's a Bexer.
Yeah. They called him Jen Jones. I don't remember why, but Gen X starts in 1965. Boomer ends in 1964.
All right.
They kind of say the last few years of X or of Boomer is Gen Jones because they have somewhat more in common with X than they do with early Boomers, but still technically a Boomer.
Yeah. All right.
So we're still running since Bill Clinton. Every single president we've had has been a Boomer until Biden, who was silent Gen. We went backwards, and now we're back to Boomer again.
But on the very youngest side, regardless, whatever, she's not a millennial or even a younger Gen X, so it really doesn't matter.
But yeah, so I think that kind of galvanizing, and I'm happy. I'm happy to be wrong about this. I'm happy that my finger on the pulse of the future is usually off, and that makes me I'm ecstatic about it.
Oh man, I felt like yesterday. I felt like a weight was off my shoulders. I was like watching Tim Waltz go on podcast episodes and stuff, and like hearing him talk. I was like, fuck yeah. Let's do this. Like, she's not my favorite candidate.
No.
We're going to talk about some of the things that we don't like about her. But for the most part, like, she's basically Biden with like a little bit more panache and like maybe a half step to the left.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I'm going to say some unpopular things about her political positions.
Yeah.
And that's basically, I think she's not to the left or to the right of Biden. She is where is ever politically most advantageous for her career at the moment. That's been my impression of her from the beginning. and we'll get into that and kind of my support for that as we go on. But yeah, so I think that can be beneficial if the push is, we want some more progressive policies, and she feels that that's advantageous for her career, then she'll abide by that. And in a way, you can't fault a person for that. I wish it was just
I mean,
her.
You can't fault a politician. A normal person, you could be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
But yeah, and somebody here in the comments said in the Senate she voted the same as Bernie 90% of the time, and that's fair. But Bernie voted the same as the Democrats 90% of the time. So
I will say Bernie is holding out a full endorsement until he can get some concessions on her platform, which I think is pretty
fucking
dope.
baller.
Like it's baller move for sure. Like hats off to Bernie for being like, I will support her, but we are still in talks about whether we can make this a moderately progressive platform or not. So I just saw that today, actually.
Nice.
Bernie's holding out.
Yep, I appreciate him. Like, and that I think was honestly his goal in running for president, because I don't think that he ever thought he was going to win the nomination, and it became much more popular than. I mean, at a certain point, there was definitely a potential path.
I mean, in 2015, like he had a shot, obviously.
But I think his purpose of doing that was to platform and bring legitimacy on the main stage to these more progressive ideals.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's always been his goal, is everything he does to try to bring some legitimacy and mainstream attention to ideals that otherwise, both parties want to shove under the rug because it doesn't help corporate America do corporate America things.
Right. And that's why I'm always going to be a Bernie stan, because he's not in it for himself. He is literally in it for the party and for the people who he wants to help. So like, I don't care what anybody says. Bernie stan for life.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
He's not perfect, but like he's the closest thing we're ever going to see, probably. Like
I remember in one of my comments, I think it was on the Kamala, because I made that video, which we'll get to too, about saying Kamala is that sexist, and obviously I talked about Bernie. And I'm like, I'm a certified Bernie bro, like first political campaign I ever donated to and all that shit. And somebody's like, oh, I just lost a ton of respect for you because you like are a Bernie supporter. And he just ran on the Democrat. He's an independent, and he ran on the Democratic Party for the money. And I'm like, what money do you think he got for running for president? Like, he ran on the Democratic Party because he's not a moron and understands that third parties can't win a fucking election.
Exactly. Which is why RFK started out on the Democratic ticket and then now is independent because...
God, I wish that brainworm would finish the job on that asshole.
At this point, it's really tough to know who he's a spoiler for. I think now that Biden dropped out, he's definitely more of a spoiler for Trump.
I don't know.
I think so.
We'll see. We'll see how his funding changes from his top donor, since it's both him and Trump's top donor.
Thiel, whatever. Although I think Thiel's all in now on JD Vance, so I bet all that goes straight to Trump.
Yeah, but I mean, he was funding RFK specifically to spoil for Trump. I mean, there's no other reason he would have been giving more money to RFK than Trump.
Right, but I don't think it's necessary anymore. I think
but it would be necessary if he still believes that RFK can be a spoiler for Harris, and that's why I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think he will be.
So, but that would be a good barometer for my inability to predict the future. So I'm probably just talking out of my ass right now. But that would be a good barometer, I would think, about how they feel, at least, about RFK's chance of being a spoiler. And obviously, they've got all the numbers behind it, all the statistics to try to run these things. I mean,
you got a good point.
The Republicans at the top are not stupid people. They know exactly what they're doing. So, but anyway, yeah. So, I think the race here looks much better than it did a couple weeks ago.
Oh my god,
for sure. Before Biden dropped out,
far and away better. For once, there's actually good publicity.
Yeah,
about somebody other than Trump.
It's huge. Like... It's huge, and I've got to say, after the fact, and I feel a little dumb that I didn't see it as it was happening.
What do you mean?
The timing.
Oh, that
was,
weekend.
Oh my god. And so people keep there's the conspiracy going around that this was political mastermind shit. This was planned from the beginning. I'm like, nah. And then the more I think about it, I'm like, it could have been, because that timing was impeccable. Like you could not have time if this was what you were going to do, you could not have timed that better.
The only thing that I could see has been timing based is they decided to do this potentially after the debate. I think pre-debate, Biden was 1,000,000% in, and there was no talking him out of it. After that debate, maybe.
That's fair.
But
either way,
I appreciate the creative thinking.
I mean, some people are like, oh, they went in, and I think that they're getting a little outlandish with it, but like, even the debate performance was part of this strategy.
Yeah, let's just like the president of the United States, a career politician's like, I'm going to purposefully make a fool of myself on national television, just to help somebody else do better. Like I don't.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sold on it. I just I
love the comment section always.
I do think it was a baller move how they did it, because stepping down as soon as they picked JD Vance, which is
right after the pick,
a wet fucking turd.
Yeah, I know. I was a little bit more warmer on him on our last episode, and now I'm like, this was the dumbest pick ever. And I agree with you. I think Peter Thiel and the Heritage Foundation pushed him on Trump, and Trump only accepted because he's an Ohio senator, battleground state.
Yeah.
If he wasn't from a battleground state and it was not like politically like one of the few things that a VP candidate helps you with is battleground state picks, there's no way. I still don't think he would have gotten picked.
Somebody in the comments was like, "I'm sorry," or "Ohio is sorry JD exists."
Yeah,
we accept your apology.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking for all of Ohio in this moment. But speaking of VP picks, so Kamala will be choosing one shortly. Supposedly, she's gonna.
Wait, hold on. Before we get to the VP pick, I just wanted to like finish the baller move of this timing.
Okay.
Because not only was it the JD Vance thing, but the entirety of their campaign has been built around Biden's old.
No, yeah, their campaign strategy.
And all of their merch is fuck Joe Biden and let's go Brandon and all of this, and all of that's useless now.
Yeah, nobody gives a shit.
And they spent their entire convention campaigning against Biden, all of that publicity, campaigning against Biden, against somebody they're not even running against now, and then they took all the wind out of their sails with this major move, right? That was headline news. The president steps down in the middle of the election, running for re-election, unprecedented move, and none of their publicity from the convention is getting aired anymore. Trump's little boo-boo on his ear not getting aired anymore. Yesterday's news, old news, nobody gives a shit anymore. And it's fucking brilliant. Like, I mean, it was a baller move, and whether that was completely coincidentally by accident or this was, a master plan, and Biden really is Dark Brandon up there fucking laser eyeing this shit. Like, it was brilliant.
I'll give you that. Coincidental or planned. The timing could not have been better. Literally, like, on the razor's edge either way. I think if you wait even a little bit longer, you're sort of fucking yourself big time. And any sooner than you give a chance for the RNC to react.
And I want to say too that timing being that perfect gives me more of an inclination that it wasn't planned at all, because the DNC fucking sucks at messaging and targeting and planning.
Yes.
So
I think they tripped into that one. They just like tripped and it fell right into, I don't know.
Just recovered and we're like, fuck.
Right.
Did you see me stick that landing, guys?
Exactly.
All right. Sorry, I'm done. VP picks.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there's a pretty short list. I mean, our favorite got to be Tim Walz.
No, you keep your hands off my goddamn governor. Right? He's ours,
I know,
and I don't want to share.
Penny Flanagan, I think, will do a good job.
This is true.
I think she'll pick up the torch and she'll keep going.
This is true. So I've met her in person.
You have?
Yeah, I have. I mean, just a short period of time, but I have gotten to actually like speak with her and talk to her about some issues, and I've seen her speak in person and stuff, and I absolutely love her, but she does not have the
Riz.
the Riz. that Walls does. Like
Oh,
Walls has a
He's got it.
certain
He's got it.
certain aura about him. Because
Yeah.
I've met him too, seen him speak in person,
Yeah.
got to talk to him a little bit
He's
in
fiery.
person.
He's fiery.
Oh, he is, and he's incredibly warm and welcoming and everything.
He feels down to earth, but
Uh-huh.
somehow also inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And Peggy's inspiring for who she is. Like
Sure.
absolutely inspiring for who she is, but it's not that same. It's a very down to business person when you talk to her, which is awesome and there's nothing wrong with that, but like
The it factor.
the it factor with Walls, and it's a Walls thing. It is specifically a Walls thing.
Right. Some people have it. Most people don't.
Yeah. And that's a tough one to give up, especially with like the record of shit we've gotten done here.
And it's not like this fall is going to be a slam dunk for Minnesota. Like
no.
probably it ends up is still a trifecta,
Yeah.
but like it's not a guarantee.
No, I mean we have not had a trifecta most of the time. Like it's rare, and even our trifecta here is narrow as fuck.
Yeah,
like,
right. And a lot of times when we get a trifecta, it's very short lived. So, yeah.
But yeah. So I think Walls would be excellent. Everybody on the internet seems to love Walls now because now he's getting the national publicity and everybody sees what Minnesota has and they want what Minnesota has.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You keep your grubby hands off our fucking governor.
Yeah. So I think he would like if no political strategy, put into it. I think he does fit the best.
Yeah.
Like he is just like the best VP, the yin yang for Kamala being like she's a good speaker, but she doesn't.
Again, she doesn't have that it. She doesn't have the riz. She doesn't have the factor that Walls has, and I give you that.
She has more cringe moments than she does inspiring moments.
Yeah.
Like the whole weird thing where she's like, it's just weird. Like she did like a chuckle. I was like, that was forced, bro. That was really forced, and it like
on the bright side, we've got JD Vance up there. They're gonna
cats are
say I'm
running our
racist because I
government.
got a Mountain Dew. That was the joke.
Yeah, that's worse. That is worse. No, that's for sure. So I think he can be the campaigner, co-candidate that she would really need for the next 100 days.
Yeah. I think so. Putting political strategy into it.
He is from Minnesota, and Minnesota's already a lock.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily a huge lock when Biden was running, but now it's like 10 points up from where it was.
Yeah.
So it's like a 15 point lead for Harris in Minnesota.
And once again, you'd be more likely to flip Texas blue than Minnesota red, if we're being honest.
Probably. Probably. And so now, there's just no political strategy other than like he's charismatic. So like if you think that supersedes a governor who's from a battleground state, then maybe you still go for it. That's an argument.
Which is why I'm still dying on the hill of Roy Cooper.
But he's out.
He's out?
He said he didn't want it. He said he wasn't going to do it because he didn't want the lieutenant governor, who's a Republican in North Carolina, to take his place because he thinks like he's gonna be a fucking weirdo.
Oh, I mean, the dude is a fucking weirdo.
Right.
I did a political profile on him once. The dude is
I don't remember his name, but
fucking insane. Fucking insane. Yeah, I don't. What is his fucking name? I don't even remember. I do so many of the things.
Lieutenant Gov NC Mark Robinson.
Yep, Mark Robinson. He is an absolute lunatic.
Oh right, he's with like the some folks need killing guy. Yeah. Which I saw the whole thing and like it's definitely not like he's like calling for people to go murder people, but it's still like it's still a Donald Trump-esque thing to say is like, oh, you don't need to vote in 4 years.
Yeah,
it's like, what are you saying, man? Like, be clear on what you're trying to say, because if you say weird shit, people are going to take it in a weird direction because it's not that far of a reach.
Right.
And so...
And the thing is, it's like, it's the saying the quiet part out loud. Even if you're not saying it in full context of what the quiet part is, it's like... It was like when Trump just did an interview recently with Fox, and they're like, they say that it could help build trust by declassifying stuff. Would you be willing to declassify some stuff? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, all right, we're gonna go through some things. Like, would you declassify the JFK files? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. And like, would you declassify I don't remember, something else.
If they don't bring up Area 51, they're not doing their job.
Right. And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll declassify that. And they're like, would you declassify the Epstein files? He's like, I mean, some of it maybe.
Why would you even just say yes and then fucking don't do it, you dummy?
And then they're like, because it was the most awkward response ever, because you could tell he's like, oh shit, I'm definitely in those things.
They've declassified enough where you're like, dude has been on that island and on those planes way too many fucking times to be clean.
And then he's like, well, I wouldn't he literally said that I wouldn't declassify it as much as some of the other stuff, because there's some people's names in there and I don't want to ruin anybody's lives just because they maybe had some association. Like, when have you ever cared about ruining anybody else's life, dude? You care about one person's life, that is yours, and that is the most admission of guilt I've ever seen out of that, man.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw a couple clips of it, and that's got to be the worst part of it. The Laura Ingraham one.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so Tim Walz, I personally think he overcomes the battleground state sort
possibly.
of handicap.
I mean, he's still a Midwest governor,
and he doesn't have a ton of name recognition. That obviously he's getting more name recognition now, but and I agree, Midwest sort of helps, but Minnesota's kind of on its own.
I mean, yeah, Minnesota's a pedestal state in the Midwest, but it's still.
Well, I mean,
but the rest of the Midwest still identifies as Midwest. Like Minnesota, Wisconsin, you take politics out of it. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa. Yeah. Like we are Midwest. It's
and Pennsylvania wants to think of themselves as Midwest too. So and Ohio.
Somebody on here said it's going to be Shapiro, and I hope you're fucking wrong. That would be the worst.
That was the next person on my list is Shapiro. For that reason alone is the JD Vance reason is why he's governor of Pennsylvania. So he says a lot of the right things for the most part, but he just doesn't say them in a way that's convincing at all.
No, and his policy, he's far to the right of Biden. Like
he's very moderate-ish.
He would push progressives back a lot.
He definitely would, and I don't think he meshes super well with Kamala. Like I don't think they've worked together that closely.
No,
and
I don't think Shapiro is the choice.
I think Roy Cooper would have been the best choice.
I will die on that hill because they're running in the same election.
Yeah.
Right? Cooper's running in the same election. It really wouldn't be like Lieutenant Governor could do a ton in that short period of time, especially if he's like, all right, you don't need Roy Cooper up there campaigning a ton, right? Like you can have him at home still doing his job part of the time. It's not like he's overly charismatic and where he's really great in front of the, he's not a Gavin Newsom where you want him in front of the camera, truth to power bullshit or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then their election will be coming up and it'll be either Robinson or not at that point in North Carolina, but Roy Cooper's really popular in North Carolina and they could swing that.
There's just something about his face. He just looks like a newscaster who has been on the air for too long and used to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day. Sort of, I don't know.
I mean,
he's fine, but it's just
fair. I was just like, if he could pull, because I would be worried. Have they ex-nayed Bashir at this point? Then
I don't even think he's sort of on the short list, but I think he's on the outskirts
longer
of the
short list.
Yeah, he's on the longer short list. Roy Cooper's officially withdrawn.
Okay,
as of yesterday from being his running.
Yesterday, yeah. See how well I keep up with everything.
Well, I did most of that. I've been trying to catch up on it myself.
So, Bashir, because
ooh, but he does look a hell of a lot better than the Roy Cooper from West Virginia state delegate. That dude looks like a Oompa Loompa's grandfather that got smacked in the face too many times.
Ouch. So Bashir, I think would be.
Bashir would be an interesting choice.
I think he'd be great. I don't think you're not going to flip Kentucky, so I think that would be a useless pick in the same way that.
I think if you're going to choose Bashir, you might as well just choose Tim Walz.
Yeah, exactly. And then and absolutely, because we're not really at a risk of losing a Minnesota governor, a Democrat governor, where Andy Bashir leaving Kentucky could very well hand Kentucky governorship back to Republicans, and
that's the
people
same...
underestimate how important governors are in the national political scene,
especially in Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the same argument to be made for like Mark Kelly, senator from Arizona,
exactly,
and who would be like probably
mm-hmm.
a pretty darn good choice for VP, except the Senate is so tight.
Yep.
Losing one senator.
I mean, we're basically going to lose the Senate at this point anyway. I don't see any way around that. And maybe again, because I'm really bad at predictions, right? So there is a potential with driving more people to the polls, with Kamala being the pick and the party galvanizing and rallying around her.
Overexceed expectations.
Yeah,
from the Democratic
there could very well be a rally at the polls that was not showing up beforehand.
Oh yeah, I mean this is unprecedented area that we're in.
So there's a possibility I can see. I wouldn't be as floored if we kept the Senate now as I was a couple weeks ago,
or at least kept it at its current kind of stalemate, basically.
Right, but I mean, we still have the advantage.
True,
at this point, with one Senate and the tie-breaking vote.
Yeah, fair enough.
But the problem is that it's still not a guarantee, and then the Senate's a huge deal because again the president picks Supreme Court justices, but the Senate confirms them.
Right,
and we've seen what the Senate will do.
Yes.
If they...
Well, and it's like, if you choose Mark Kelly and lose the seat and you still win, then we've still lost at the end of the day. If it's a stalemate in Congress, between Congress and president, then it's like we still can't do anything. So,
and the vice president is kind of a useless job.
Yes. Basically, unless they're like Sarah Palin bad, and only because... She was only bad because it made John McCain look like he didn't have good decision making.
Right.
It wasn't because like she actually was like objectively terrible. She was.
Yeah.
They didn't care about her specifically. They cared because it affected John McCain. And I think
Sarah Palin lost that election for John McCain.
Yeah, probably.
I guarantee. I don't guarantee, but I am. I don't want to say I'm confident. I don't want to say I'm confident because coming out of the Bush years, Republicans were not looking great. That was not the year for John McCain to run.
I mean, it was the only year he really could have, considering his political career.
Right.
But just like strategically, it wasn't a great year for him.
Strategically. I think he would have fared better than Mitt Romney if he waited 4 more years.
Yeah.
Not that he would have made Obama a one-term president either. I don't know that would have been the case. But John McCain is the only Republican in my lifetime that has been the Republican nominee that, in the right situation against the right candidate, I may have considered voting for.
Yeah, if I were to go back in history, probably at least the last 10 elections, 20 elections, he's absolutely the one.
Yeah, I mean, but like obviously in my lifetime or even in my voting history, it was, him, Romney. There's no way. I thought Romney was a ridiculous candidate when he ran. I mean, nowadays he seems like a sane, normal person, but
how far we have fallen.
But yeah, McCain. Had you put McCain against Hillary?
Yeah, I think McCain wins.
Yeah.
Although Trump was basically the kryptonite to Hillary in a weird, except for sort of not really, because he still lost the popular vote.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, we're enough VP chat. Let's talk about the actual polling, because it's actually pretty good for Harris, considering she's been considered for president for all of a week. She's basically neck and neck in
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of the states.
she's still trailing Trump.
She's still trailing Trump, yeah.
But it's only by about 1 to 3 points.
And in a lot of the battleground states, it's
mhm.
dang near 50-50.
Yeah.
A couple of them, Arizona, I think she's still pretty far back.
Mhm.
But she's climbing.
Mhm. I mean, and I think depending on how it goes, because I think Mark Kelly could still campaign for Harris
Sure.
as senator
Yeah.
without being the
Of course.
VP pick. And I don't think it takes a whole lot for Arizona to not vote for Donald Trump because he shit talked John McCain so much.
I don't know. He did that in 2016 and 2020 as well, though. And I think Arizona went red at least one of those times.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that you don't dishonor the memory of John McCain in Arizona, and I mean I think that's why Trump lost Arizona. Had Trump just not been a dick to John McCain, they probably would have won, or he probably would have won Arizona.
Yeah, Donald Trump won Arizona in 2016.
Oh, he did.
Yep.
Oh.
By 48-44.
4 points.
So yeah, and a turnout of 75%. So more than the average, American.
That's.
What about 2020?
I'm pretty sure he lost in 2020 because that's when we got cinema. Well, 18 was when
Joe
we got
Biden won in
cinema.
2020 with 80% voter turnout.
I think because
that was even closer. That was 49-36 to 49-06.
No, but they had more shit. He did more shit talking of John McCain because John McCain continued to be critical. He was one of the few Republicans to stand up and be like, I have principles and morals and ethics that I'm not willing to sacrifice for this.
I believe conservatives had those at one point, misguided as they were.
Yeah. Anyway, so Biden post-debate was trailing Trump by 6 points on average. Harris is 1 to 3 points, so less than half of that now. She raised $200 million in the first week after the announcement, which is fucking sane.
Right. Oh, it's an incredible first week of campaigning. I saw Ben Shapiro put something out. He was on his show or whatever, and he said she's sucked at campaigning so far, and she's had a bad campaign. And it's what the fuck are you talking about? Obviously he didn't mention the money, but
right. Well, so Trump in May after his guilty verdict, that was a banger fundraising because anytime anything bad happens to Trump, his fucking minions come out and
let me pay your legal fees.
He raised $140 million for the entire month of May after his guilty verdict.
Yep.
So Harris raising $200 million in a week after announcing her candidacy is huge. On top of that, 170,000 volunteers signed on the first week, and the DFL, our state Democratic Party, the DFL, broke volunteer sign-up records for multiple days in a row. I looked this up as it was happening, and I don't know if we're still breaking those sign-up records or not, but multiple days in a row they broke sign-up records after the announcement for helping state level and national level candidates, just DFL candidates, which I've heard similar stories across the country for politicians running, as in they had people throwing themselves at them to how can I help?
Yeah.
And so that's huge. That is huge.
No doubt.
And then obviously JD Vance has the worst approval rating of any VP pick in the history post convention. Immediately after you're announced, usually there's some excitement about it.
Well, when you've been on TV for the last 10 years and not said a lot of stuff that's normal.
Yeah.
Then people will go up and check. They're like, what the fuck has this dude said so far? And when you say crazy shit, guess what? It kind of comes up, surfaces.
Yep. So yeah, I'd say right now it's looking good. Very good.
It's a really good start. It's a really great start. And the biggest thing that I saw was that her support from independents is 15-20% higher than it is than Donald Trump's support is. So it seems like she's going to pull the moderates that were still maybe floating in between and independents who were like, I really don't like Joe Biden. So like maybe I'll vote for RFK. Now they're like, well, now that it's Harris, yes, definitely I got to go Harris. So I think it's probably the best move the DNC has probably ever done in modern politics.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, they have not had a good track record. The bar's pretty low on the shit they've pulled basically since the Obama campaign was a stellar campaign, but it's kind of the
I don't
the
think
exception,
that didn't have
not
much
the rule.
to do with the DNC though. That was just Biden was a great candidate. He had the it factor, and
Obama.
Did I say Biden?
You said Biden.
He was just there. So.
He was there. I mean, they had that cool like relationship going on
back when
then.
social media was first coming out. They
Yeah.
post like some videos of them just hanging with Joe, and
Yeah.
getting a cup of Joe with Joe, and like it was funny. Like they played off that pretty well.
But yeah, so I think it's looking pretty good in that sense. But there's been obviously now we've got a woman running for president again, and there's a certain ish that comes with that.
Yeah, I mean, people like to bring that up. I don't know that's why they're saying DEI, but like it's probably a good part of it.
Oh, it's a huge part of it.
I think the bigger part of it is her being black and Southeast Asian than anything else. But certainly the woman part makes a big deal.
Yeah.
Too. Those two factors combined, I think, is what really they're like, yeah, DEI.
Which I'd never even heard DEI until
Really?
yeah.
I haven't heard about it for like
I'm like,
years.
is that a sporting goods store or
so close? REI and DEI are separate things for all those people like Jordan out there who didn't know what DEI was before a couple months ago or a week ago, apparently. Yeah, I mean, so in the military, they don't call it DEI, but it's like equal opportunity employment. Basically, it's that.
EEOC?
Yes. That's basically what it is. More leaning maybe a little bit more towards like affirmative action, if you want to, put that out there. Which
sure. So is this an actual policy or is this just a buzzword like woke?
It's more like woke in that people think DEI is a thing that's like a policy because it's kind of like corporations putting the pride flag on their products during Pride Month, like it's like we have, women in our board of, trustees. We have a certain amount of black people in our company. We are diverse, and diversity is good. And so it's like, obviously there's like, I'd mentioned affirmative action because it's not like it's not that much of a policy, but like it
right. But I mean, affirmative action was an actual law.
True, right.
An actual policy. I mean, it was a policy.
Yeah, a DEI is just like a thing that I think it started in corporate America before it even really like was brought up as a politics thing. It was like a way to make your company seem more younger and like more in with the times, and that you cared about diversity and people's values while stripping the value and meaning from their lives.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So Fox News and a lot of Republican freaking politicians are calling her a DEI hire, which is basically their dog whistle for they chose her because she's black and she's black, so she sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, unqualified.
In a way, I feel like as the VP pick, that was not an unconsidered factor in the choice. I mean, because they basically admitted it. We're going with a woman. We're going with a minority.
So I look at it this way, especially for politics, it makes the most sense to do it there versus anywhere else. Because you want to have candidates that represent people that will be voting for them.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point of why like Kamala is only potentially, at least the short list, is all
Mhm.
old white guys.
Right.
Because she is more Californian than she is Ohio Rust Belt
Mhm.
or Midwest. So, like, you balance a ticket.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So, sure. Like, was she chosen in part because she was a black woman for Joe Biden's VP pick?
Absolutely.
Probably.
Mhm.
But also, was she there at the presidential, like, you know, was she running to be president at the
Yeah.
time? Also, yes.
She was a contender in the
Right.
nomination process.
Yeah, she wasn't just like
not like a top contender, but like she was
No,
still
yeah.
she still ran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was in the
Um,
right place
mhm.
and was qualified to be there. And then they were like, "Well, we want to appeal to voters, so yeah, we'll bring you on."
Mhm.
It could have been if it's the same thing with Obama and bringing on Joe Biden.
Yeah.
If you want to call Joe Biden a DEI hire, I guess go ahead. Like, it's
Right.
like, it's dumb.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Which is why that's fucking Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just like they're like, fight me on the actual facts of it. It's like, you
Yeah.
can't do that with you because you
Yeah.
don't care about the facts. Every time we do, you're like, well, he's dumb. So,
Mhm.
or he's Joe Brandon. So it's like, what the fuck are we even arguing
Yeah.
for? There's no point in it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. So and I mean, and we knew that they were gonna do this as
Oh,
soon
yeah.
as this was gonna happen.
Well, and
uh,
they're still doing it after Speaker
mean,
Mike
just-
Johnson is
yeah.
like, hey, maybe you should stop with the racial remarks. And they're
Mhm.
like,
nah.
nah, thanks.
I mean, they're even levying the racist shit at JD Vance for his wife. Like, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
they
they levied the racist shit against their own candidate Vivek Ramaswamy
Mhm.
when he was running. Like,
Yeah.
there were conservatives within their own party that were like,
Mhm.
I don't want to vote for you because you're an Indian.
You're a little too brown for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
He even came out, I was like, wow, I didn't think that was such a prevailing like feeling with
Mhm.
conservative Americans. It's like, go fucking figure, bro.
Mhm. I mean, and you look at it, like Nikki Haley. I very much feel like she adopted her nickname from a child, Nikki, versus going with her actual name.
What is that?
What is her actual name?
Yeah,
It's pretty Indian.
guess I didn't even know that she was not just a white lady. I don't know.
Yeah. Nimarata. I'm butchering the hell out of it, but
Yeah,
I mean,
that's not a very Western name.
Nimaratata. Nimaratata?
Hmm.
Nimaratata Nikki Haley.
Sounds like you gave it your best try.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I'm really not trying to butcher it or mispronounce it at all.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
But yeah, I mean, like, I feel like there's a reason that's not what she was running under, or what she has ever run under, especially in South Carolina.
No.
And that's because and you gotta wonder what people like that are thinking when it's like you got to try to alter your identity a little bit and just sort of keep it under wraps.
I want to be a rock star. Change my name and my hair, and I'll wear different clothes just to like. I guess it works for people,
Yeah, it's like you got the party that will gladly elect Ilhan Omar or Barack Hussein Obama,
Right.
and not be weird about it, and then
Right.
you've got the people where you're like, yeah, if I go with Vivek, they're gonna have some problems, or I need to call myself Nikki
Right.
instead of I'm not gonna try again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we all know we
Mhm.
beat that horse as much as they're beating it.
Yeah.
And then they're also pointing out like she had a relationship with somebody who eventually gave her an appointment, even though she wasn't dating him when he gave her the appointment. They were just ex
Right.
relation, ex
Mhm.
boyfriend girlfriend or whatever. So like supposedly she, they're what are they're calling her the original Haktua girl. Like, just
So she
And-
dated some people.
so in California, she dated somebody who was separated, still married at the
Mhm.
time. They were together for a few years, and then they broke up. And then, like 5 to 7 years later, he appointed her for an appointable position, I
Right.
think as DA or something
Mhm.
for San Francisco.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Okay, cool.
yeah, like people get in relationships and they
Mhm.
get out of relationships. I don't think a relationship multiple years prior counts as like a Monica Lewinsky type situation.
I do want to point out, 'cause somebody pointed out in the comments that she was elected to DA.
We're like to the attorney.
I have no idea what
I thought she was elected to AG.
I mean, it's
Absolutely,
probably,
AG twice.
Yeah,
I didn't know that you were elected for DA. Maybe appointed to the DA office. I don't know. Like, she was a long-time lawyer before she became a politician. So that's what I heard. I could be wrong, but that's what I read.
Oh, not appointed, endorsed is what it was. So
sure, okay,
whatever.
Yes, even less so then.
Yeah, exactly. Even less of a thing. I don't know. There's I've seen conservatives just continuously sharing a picture that she dated Montel Williams at some point. And like, it's like, and like, this is supposed to like mean something. Like, they're like, oh, remember she was Montel Williams' side chick at one point. And it's like,
bro, you guys know Donald Trump cheated on his pregnant wife with a porn star, right?
Yeah, and also like she dated Montel Williams in the early 2000s. Like, how is that?
It's like, who gives a flying?
And they're like, Google it. It's super interesting if you've never heard about this. And so I Googled it. It's like, yeah, she dated Montel Williams for a few months or a year, something in the early 2000s. And I'm like, okay.
Well, you heard it here, folks. That's the most interesting part of the podcast. We're just going to end it right here.
Cool. I'm waiting for the interesting part to happen. Like,
right.
God, I'm surprised I even know who the hell Montel Williams is. I forgot he existed till he tried to make it a thing again.
Right. I forgot about him for sure. Yeah. So what is this? I haven't seen any of this left or Democrat infighting. Is that something you've seen here?
Yeah. So obviously, as we've both said, Kamala would never have been our first pick. Like, if we were like, hey, what's our ideal candidate?
She's not a true progressive in the slightest. So like,
and then calling her Kamala was apparently the worst thing in the world for a while.
Yeah.
And,
right.
This was, I think it's finally calmed down a little bit. But it was very much it's a double standard. It's sexist because you're calling a woman by her first name who's running for president, and we call everybody else by their last name because they're men, and it's a sign of respect and all this bullshit. I'm like, I was a Bernie bro. I don't think I've ever called him Sanders in my life. Bernie Sanders, maybe.
Right.
Mostly always Bernie.
Pretty much always Bernie, but definitely Bernie Sanders. Never Sanders.
No.
And also, she just hasn't been, I don't think, around long enough for us to think of her in a derogatory manner.
Right.
Like, we think of Biden as like, fucking Biden. But we'll say Joe.
Yeah.
Sometimes. It's just, I don't know. Joe also, he like plays up the Joe too much that it feels cringe to use that.
Right.
Like,
right.
I don't know. Like,
well, and the thing is, like, Joe's a boring old white guy name, right?
Right.
Trump puts his name on the side of everything he ever touches.
That's literally what he like. His whole brand is just the name Trump.
And then and like you look back, like Teddy Roosevelt. We refer to him as Teddy. That's a nickname of his first name.
Right.
Like, it doesn't get more informal than that. Everybody likes, or I like Ike for Dwight Eisenhower. Again, a nickname. And the thing is that regardless, she branded herself as Kamala. Like, it's Kamala HQ, Kamala on the side of her bus. Kamala is an interesting name. It really comes down to branding and the fact that so many people were doing this performative, progressive bullshit.
Right.
And it's like you're hurting. Like, I had a bunch of people in the video where I did on Kamala stepping up to the role, accusing me of being sexist, of all people, in that situation. And it's like, this is the battle you want to pick right now. Right?
Yeah.
This is what you're going for.
Okay, so a lot of times presidents, their last name is what we call them by, is because it's their administration. It's the Biden administration. It's the Trump administration. Hopefully it will be the Harris administration.
Yeah.
So when she gets to the point where she's a president, we'll call it the Harris. We're not going to call it the Kamala administration. Right. Like, it's like you think Jimmy Carter, like that's what you think. But you would also think of the Carter administration all the time. Like that, it's just goes hand in hand, and she just hasn't been a president yet. So
absolutely. So no, I agree, and I think at the time it comes to what she herself has chosen to be called in
Yeah,
this.
I think she's definitely like she's not shied away from.
No, I mean she's very much owned it. Like I said, it's
Yeah.
Kamala HQ. Kamala's on the
It's
side
her
of her
fucking
bus.
name, so
Yeah,
like,
but it's an interesting name. Harris sounds like another old white dude, right?
yeah.
Kamala is something that's memorable, and I think it works for branding. So again, I think
It
that
rolls off the tongue.
sometimes being a little too woke is a real thing. And that was
100%. not sometimes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you can go too far.
And then the same thing came with, because I'd mentioned, I was like, she was not my first pick. I thought she was a weak candidate when they picked her for VP. I was worried about her being a weak candidate being picked for the presidency for the nomination, and a lot of that was sort of that feeling of pretentiousness and the fact that she has a history of sort of flip-flopping on issues that seems to be whatever feels the best for her career at the time. And a lot of people are like, would you say the same thing about a man? And that's like coming back to that criticism. I'm like, I absolutely have said the same thing about many men. And I've also said the same thing about women that most women don't like Sarah Palin and Katie Britt and stuff like that. I'm like, you guys never chimed in then. So, this is some time for some introspection. And I think that it's important to remember that her being a woman doesn't absolve her from criticism for, and we should criticize. I criticize every single, even my favorite presidents, I have heavy criticisms for.
Yeah.
Except for Jimmy Carter. Just soft criticisms for Jimmy Carter. I love me some Jimmy. But I've got really heavy criticisms of FDR and Teddy Roosevelt, and very heavy criticisms of Barack Obama, and very heavy criticisms of Clinton. And these are all still I view as solid presidents. But
I mean, they all have, a couple of them have done some pretty good things while also doing a lot of bad things.
And so looking at
it's good to call out to tell people to chill the fuck out.
Absolutely.
But just shake it off. You know?
But I'm saying that we can't criticize people for being critical of our elected officials, because at that point we become very similar to the Trump crowd of, if you get ostracized for bringing up your opinions that may not be anything but the light of dear leader in that situation, it's not a healthy way to do democracy. And so for those things, I guess, some of the stuff that bothered me the most was her history as a prosecutor and attorney general. Partially because, ACAB.
Right.
Like, just right off the bat here.
Yeah.
Right. I wouldn't be a fan of anybody who that was their job unless they were so progressive and left field that they probably wouldn't have lasted in that job very long.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that she was like a bastion for institutional incarceration reform.
No.
So,
I mean, her office, she of course blames it on her office, and she's like, I had no idea what was going on at the time, but her office fought to keep overcrowded prisons overcrowded.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can't let people go because we'll have a labor shortage in an overcrowded prison.
Yeah.
And that's just the most fucked up. I mean, like, we need our slaves for,
Yep. Yeah, exactly. The one thing we point to all the time is slavery still in the United States is something that she was tangentially, whatever. She was closely, if not directly, related to.
She was a cog in the machine, and
and we're all cogs in the metaphorical machine that is capitalism.
She was an active drive cog in the machine, though.
Yeah, she was a bigger cog.
And her office, once again, it had nothing to do with her. She didn't know what was going on in her office, which again, not a great look.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can say that. It's just not like the best defense. A better defense would be like, I learned about it and then I called it out and then they did nothing.
Right.
That would be, other than like being a whistleblower. Like, if you're not gonna whistleblow, that's the best response. Saying I just didn't know about it is like, okay, fine. Like, it's just not a good look.
But yeah, because her office again fought to keep an innocent man in prison after he was proven innocent.
Right.
Because they're like, oh well, he missed the filing deadline for getting the evidence process to be released. And I mean, a judge is like, this is the most bullshit thing that you have an innocent man in prison and you're getting bent out of shape over a filing deadline.
Right.
You fucked this up and put him here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just absolutely insane to me. And then you know, she prosecuted a record number of people for marijuana charges. And a lot of people get really defensive on this, and they're like, "Oh, it's misinformation," and it's not. She did not incarcerate. Incarcerations were lower for marijuana charges, which is great, I guess. But she also didn't have to push the prosecutions of them at all. She still gave people a criminal record, fines, lawyer fees, time away from work, or possibly losing their jobs.
And it's like, it's the beginning. They call it a gateway drug. It's the gateway drug for getting jail time for doing something that you normally wouldn't have gotten jail time over.
Right. So how many of those people got jailed after that because now they had a criminal record? Yeah. And so it's like, I guess I'm glad that they didn't pursue jail time necessarily on all of those cases, but like 50 or 60 of them.
It
but
does
still
feel like a classic war on drugs sort of Democrat, stance. You know, like,
and she really walked that tough on crime, but she did some good programs while she was in there. She definitely had some progressive stances while she was in there.
She helped out a lot of BLM protesters and getting them out on bail and using bail funds. Appropriately. So some good things.
Credit where it's due. It's just I have very little benefit of the doubt when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to police reform. She followed through on she said she was against the death penalty, and as Attorney General, she did not have to enforce the death penalty, but she said she would stay in line with California's laws and uphold the death penalty, and that's a choice she had to make. Like, she could have not done that, the same as she didn't have to prosecute marijuana charges at all. In fact, her predecessor expunged all of the marijuana charges going back to 1975, and these are choices she could have done. There was things she could have done better, and she basically upheld the status quo. And so she tried to look progressive where it looked good. She tried to look tough on crime where it looked good for career progression, and that's where I've gotten that. And she's admitted that she herself has smoked weed, and that's where that feels very pretentious to me. Okay, you're willing to prosecute people for this, and that. So I felt that those are valid criticisms. Those are not valid enough criticisms for me to not vote for her in this situation at all.
It's important to point it out because it's important to discuss our politicians, our candidates, and not in the way that we discuss Donald Trump or the Republicans discuss Donald Trump. We don't want to become that party.
No, I will not excuse things that I personally hold as my moral and ethical convictions for what I think our leadership should be.
People can say, "Oh, you're just being a fucking dummy," and they can move on with their life. But we're here, pointing it out.
Yeah,
because it's important to some people,
and it is, and it's I want my future representatives to be better, and this is the best current representative we have, and I'm going to take that. I'm going to vote for that. I'm going to support her through this election, absolutely, and probably through the next one. Hopefully through the next one at this point.
Yeah, I guess. Or better option. Well, worse for her, but for progressives, it's better. Chooses Tim Walz. Somehow doesn't make it all the way through, or decides to bow out after her first term, and then Tim Walz, as the former VP, runs as president, and then we finally have a progressive
Minnesota president, because we've had so many so close. And
hey, that's right. We're one of them was also Tim Walz-esque, and we're getting our second chance, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so that was all I wanted to point out on that. Is it's important to make sure that sorry.
Yeah, well, so we've talked. I think we've talked enough about her history. Let's talk about what she plans to do when she does get into office. It's pretty clear. I don't think we need to spend too much time on it, but basically, Biden.
Yeah.
Basically, Biden. Pro-union, mostly. NLRB. Good strides there. Bad on the railroads, obviously. So, I'd give them a better grade than a worse grade.
Right.
But not stellar. but more pro union than obviously Trump's going to be. Pro child care. I don't know if it's universal child care or just like helping child, not be in poverty. And she's pro family leave.
Yeah.
She's not, at least I haven't heard her be super clear on the exact policy. She's just like pro like affordable childcare. It's like,
yeah,
okay, that's something, I guess.
it's
the
good
same
lip
thing.
service.
It's the
at
same
this
thing as
point,
like we need to build more houses and make housing affordable. It's like, okay, cool, yeah, like that's a good thing. Affordable health care as well. She's not saying Medicare for all, from what I've seen. So
yeah,
that's a problem for Bernie. It's a problem for me too.
and I'm hoping it's one of those concessions that Bernie is going to fight on.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Fox News has the criticisms of her wanting to reform ICE and or the border control, basically restarting and reforming those organizations from scrap, and then potentially decriminalizing illegal immigrants.
Which I 100%.
We're a million percent for.
I love how that's their criticism, and we're like, that's 100% what it should be.
That's based as fuck. Thank you for bringing it to the light. They also are critical of her wanting to ban fracking and stop offshore drilling, which I don't
on board for.
Yeah, like let's transition to a green economy. It's a matter of will, not a matter of dollars at this point. So it's within our grasp. She's in favor of keeping Social Security. I want to say increasing Social Security, but maybe that's another Bernie thing. But definitely not for getting rid of Social Security or Medicare, like some of the Republicans are going for. She's pro building up the middle class, so we're going back to that trope a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know why you'd bring that up today. These days, it doesn't seem like the most popular thing to like. It's not going to.
I still think it is, especially with middle-aged and older voters. I mean, that's their
fair enough.
That's what they grew up on. That was, the goal was to be as a strong, successful middle class. And,
yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can say that with a straight face and not look at the numbers and see that it has shrunk consistently every year since ever, basically, since the 60s. So, like, whatever. But, and then she is actually talking about Project 2025. The whole Democratic Party has finally decided that they want to try to play ball in this campaign.
Fucking long enough.
I know. It's like they're like, we didn't really want to try to make Republicans seem crazy or like Democrats seem reasonable before, but yeah, I guess we could try, maybe to win this election. So now they're talking about it, which is a good thing, obviously. The biggest things that I think we're going to be against, actually, she's pro red flag laws and universal background checks, which I don't think we have too much issue with. Universal background checks especially is like, why does not every state do it the exact same way, and why is it not a streamlined process? Like, we've been working on this since the 90s. It should be done by now.
I mean, universal background checks is a very vague kind of bullshit rhetoric that makes no sense whatsoever. Because like if you already in theory have universal background checks. If you buy a new gun, you're getting a background check. There's no two ways around that.
I think what somebody would mean by that is closing all the loopholes for buying guns that currently exists.
And the loopholes comes down to used gun sales.
Right.
Which is only used gun sales between private parties.
Right.
Which is, again, somewhat problematic because how are you going to enforce enforce that?
That's a good point. I don't
know. And so to me, and it's...
I mean, I think the only way you do is you make somebody liable for owning the serial number if you're selling it to another private party and not registering the transfer. You're now liable for the usage of said weapon. Probably minor. Probably affects it's 0.1% of any.
It's one of those things that I think spends a lot of political capital for almost no gain.
And this is the worst part: is she said she's for an assault weapon ban, whatever the fuck that means. Like, I was joking about it with my buddies. We're like, "What is an assault weapon?" And why did you bring that up on the campaign?
Black and scary.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And again, like they did the quote unquote, well, it was the assault weapons ban in the 90s. It was relatively ineffective.
Yeah, as far as I know,
board.
like didn't stop a whole lot of people from dying from guns. They were already previously dying.
Yeah, mass shootings remained pretty stable
Well,
through
and
the entire time.
the bigger reason why guns are dangerous is the suicides. That
Yeah,
didn't affect the amount
It's
of
not
people
going
that
to
committed
affect that.
suicide. So
Yeah, so once again, those things are
ineffectual and a waste of
mhm.
time and political capital.
Yeah. And the political capital thing is what I think is the biggest deal. Like if you're gonna burn political capital and potentially lose seats over something, it better be something that's going to make a big difference. And straw sale guns don't account for a very notable amount of gun violence.
No.
It's a lot of times access to a gun in a house that you already have. So like if you wanted to put some legislation towards that,
or say you're a
the
20-year-old
boyfriend loophole or whatever they
Right.
want to call it, then like sure, but yeah, but it's just it's just a lot of people who have no understanding of guns, gun policy, or gun crime, trying to say something that makes people who are scared of something they don't understand feel better, and it rallies the opposition to come vote against you, which is the problem.
Like we're logical people, and so we're like, if you're going to ban guns for the purpose of reducing the amount of deaths that are caused by guns, you start with handguns.
Yeah.
Pure and simple.
Yep.
Like banning assault weapons does the
Nothing.
smallest amount to reducing gun deaths.
Yeah.
If that's your goal. So like if your goal is to do that, then don't start there.
Yeah.
It's not gonna help.
Yeah. So
and then obviously she's pro-choice, so
and that's honestly a big thing. I think that is the Democrats winning.
it's a silver bullet that they are not really throwing out there right now.
Yeah, I mean a little bit, but it's the one thing that they should be campaigning on hard and fast across the board. My opponent is against women's bodily autonomy, women's healthcare, women's freedom, and I am.
Well, and they should be making campaign ads with women that have been disaffected in Republican-ran states that have abortion bans.
Yeah.
And those should be the ads running 24/7.
Yep.
That's it.
I mean, that's literally like, that is, if there's ever a time to just focus on one policy issue, it is that issue, 1,000%. Like, and it's not even an opinion. No. Like, you look across the board at all of the midterms, all of the off-cycle elections, all of the ballot initiatives, and people showing up in force for that issue. Fucking capitalize on it.
Right. And is it the most like important issue for voters, as they say on polls? No. But is it the one thing you can actually change potentially? Like the economy is like a big thing. It's like, what are you going to run an ad on the economy that's going to change minds?
Right.
Nothing. You're never going to run an ad.
We want more jobs.
Joe Biden did good on the economy. Next ad, Joe Biden did bad on the economy. Fuck.
Yeah.
Like this is something that's irrefutable. You bring people who have actually had to deal with the state-imposed violence that is an abortion ban, and some people have almost died. Plenty of people have almost died because of things like that. And I guarantee they want to hear that that story told. So
and then turn their own rhetoric on them, like about the border and about immigration. Right. Like it would be so easy, and rather than trying to placate them with a stupid fucking executive order and shit to close the border, like we Republicans are making the border more dangerous and unsafe and are allowing more immigrants to come across without proper legal status because we put the legislation forward to fix these problems, which, I mean, it was bullshit legislation. Right. I'm glad it failed. Yeah. But we put the legislation forward to fix these problems. We put bipartisan legislation forward, and they refused to go through with it. They are sabotaging your safety at the border. Just turn it around on them. It would be so easy because those are the two things, which border security to me is the dumbest. Why is that a fucking problem?
Because Fox News, it drives their voters. That's the only reason why.
Right.
I have one small point on immigration is all the Democrats have to do to turn that narrative around, like you said, is allow for work visas. And it's as if you register as an immigrant and you want to work, give them a work visa, and then they're registered. Yep. And then they pay taxes. And then if they do a small crime, kick them out.
Yep.
You make that policy, Democrats win that argument.
1,000%. 1,000%. But you kowtow to, you do executive orders of like, oh, I'm shutting down access and keeping people on the other. It's like, well, now you're just giving validity to the bullshit narrative the Republicans have done.
Exactly.
And so like those are the two things that they should be doing, in my opinion, for this. And you have taken all of the wind out of the Republican sails. And
this is the opportunity. You have potentially a once in a multi-cycle opportunity here to do something massive, and I just hope the Democrats can get their poop in a group and get the messaging together, which isn't historically their strong suit.
No, they're not very good at that.
They're like, we did this one thing good, we're set for a decade, right? Yep. You know,
we got Obama, now we can go back to the same old shit we've been doing for
yeah, exactly.
So did you read that email?
I did, and that's what I kind of mentioned with Tim Walz. That's when, and partly with the DEI, like the back and forth, like presidential candidates, is like Obama chose Joe Biden because Joe Biden was a establishment, new Democrat, which is not new
anymore.
Agree. I do think there's a yin and yang for like basically ever is like since Al Gore and John Kerry, like there absolutely has been a yin and yang of establishment and non-establishment Democrats, whether it's president or vice president. So I don't think this is going to be any different. Hopefully they don't choose to. I think Harris plays enough ball to be considered an establishment candidate, but I don't think she's truly an establishment candidate. But
she's not a legacy candidate.
She's not a legacy, but I think she's establishment enough to qualify as that. So maybe they're okay with somebody like a Tim Walz who will play ball enough, but still hold true to progressive values when he gets to the point where he reaches some position of power.
And then if progressives could come up with some sort of coalition and caucus to actually...
I mean, we need something that's not the DSA, but that's not the classic Democratic Party. Like, we need something in between that has at least as much clout as like the DSA, which say what you want, like they are a legitimate socialist, like political coalition. So we need something that is not quite as radical yet.
Radical.
Radical. I mean, the DSA is a radical in compared to our current system. Not that I'm saying like they're radical in the bad way.
No,
they're just like it is radically different.
But I mean, and it's not radical in the terms of like global politics.
Oh, global historical politics. Yeah, no, it's not radical at all in that sense.
By the way, for everybody, DSA is a Democratic Socialist Party.
Socialist for America, Democratic Socialist for America.
It's Bernie Sanders.
Basically, Bernie Sanders, but they say the socialist stuff out loud. Whereas Bernie is just like social safety nets, and then let's do...
I mean, he ran as a democratic socialist or whatever. He's owned the terminology a little bit.
I wouldn't call him a socialist.
Oh, I wouldn't either, but,
Anyway, final thoughts here. Let's wrap it up.
Once again, we've gone way over 20-some minutes so far.
It's all good.
Yeah.
There's a lot to catch up on this week.
Already got a violation on the TikTok live too because we talked about drugs. Oh no!
What?
So dumb.
Drugs don't exist.
There's no such thing as the drugs.
Yeah, if you do them, you're not a real person.
But yeah, do you think
will Republicans be able to pivot?
I don't think so. I think that they had a real easy campaign strategy built up, and now none of it's going to work. You can't do the Hunter's laptop bullshit anymore, and you can't do Sleepy Joe anymore. Like everything that they have built this foundation on of quick, and that's what they need because their constituents need something that's like fewer than 10 syllables to remember.
If you start
total.
Talking policy to a MAGA, pro MAGA person, their just eyes will glaze over. And
so
be like,
they're what I think that they're going to do is just the party's going to try to hold back the sexism and racism, the establishment party of the Republicans.
They're going to fail.
They're going to fail because their base that they have emboldened all of these years, that's what they thrive on. That is why they're here. That's why they showed up for the party. And then you've got Donald Trump, who can't go 5 minutes without saying something stupid. And then they got JD Vance, who apparently can't go 5 minutes without saying something stupid. And so
they do not know how to dig themselves out of a hole.
No,
like they're like, oh, this is how you dig. I'll just keep digging down where I'm at.
And so I think it's going to embolden the base, but I don't think it's going to appeal to anybody outside of that who's like, hey, I don't necessarily hate women and the Browns.
Right.
And and that's going to be I think detrimental for them with moderate conservatives and independents and obviously
I think
women.
you're already seeing it. You're already seeing it in the polls.
So I don't know that they're going to be able to pivot from this, and especially
it would take a master stroke, I think, on their part to come up with any sort of strategy that's moderately effective.
Yeah.
Maybe if Trump debates Kamala, he can pull something out of his really.
But he's already declined.
He's mostly declined, So I don't see him doing anything that's spectacular.
But then the question is, we had a somewhat similar matchup, a somewhat establishment woman candidate against Trump. We had Hillary against Trump.
I wouldn't call her somewhat. I would call her the
Hillary was. I would say Kamala is a somewhat establishment, much less so, obviously, than Hillary. So does Harris have the ability to win the election that Hillary lost?
I think that's 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I agree.
The Fox News had a whole armory.
Oh,
of
because
shit
they've been building up shit on the Clintons forever,
right.
Which is why I do think that Harris, being relatively unknown,
right, but known enough,
but a low enough profile where they have not spent all of literally decades building up an arsenal of
all they can do right now is say, "Don't call us weird. That's disrespectful."
Oh my God, it's so weird.
It's the presidential race. You should treat it importantly. It's like,
we'll stop acting so fucking weird then.
Yeah, I'll just stop doing the same thing you've been doing for the last 8 years. Shut the fuck up.
The swing states, especially some of those purple states that hue red. How do you feel Harris is going to resonate with them? Because that's definitely, I think, where probably the weakest link in the chain is.
For sure, that's her biggest weakness is older white men. And that's why she has to lean on the VP in those states. So
especially, I think the South is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I do. I think you need to focus on the battleground states if you're going to be effective in the electoral college, which is a dumbass fucking thing to say.
No, it's so
so I think you focus on those. You find a VP who can resonate with those folks, and you move forward with that strategy.
Yeah. Because Georgia, obviously, I'm very nervous about Georgia.
Yeah, I think she'll do. I think she'll win Georgia.
You do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like she might bring Florida back into play, honestly.
You think?
I do. I have I don't know. I think there is enough minority population in Florida that she'll resonate with a little bit. I don't think it's just going to be if you can get voter turnout in the cities in Florida, which is hard to do. They're just Florida's an apathetic as fuck state, except for all the fucking old people who move down there to die, and they are like, I've got nothing better to do than go to the polls today.
Right.
And then Cubans, if you can get them to realize that Democrats aren't communist and they didn't actually come from a communist country, but that's always been the tough thing.
So for 2020, the presidential election, they actually had 77%.
Did they?
Voter turnout.
Yeah.
Up 3% from the year prior, or the presidential vote prior. It was within 300,000 votes between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So
and that's
you got a point.
That's some of the outskirts of Miami at that point.
Yeah. Right.
So I do think Florida used to be purple. I don't think it's that unpurple.
No, I think Trump and DeSantis definitely solidified it as red for a while, but DeSantis' downfall and Trump not really holding on to it, I think, as strong as he could. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Sure. I mean, and then obviously the biggest factor of all, she's already worn a tan suit once.
Oh my God!
So there's no scandal to be had there.
Well, what if she comes out with a sleeveless dress at one point though? Bares her arms. That could be
Yeah,
rough.
I didn't think about that. You got a point. She's probably fucked.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, I think all in all, we are pleasantly surprised with the turnout
Yes.
of the Democratic Party and the galvanization around Kamala. I am so happy to have been wrong about my anxieties coming
Right.
into this.
And I mean, just for a moment, like we're
Uh-huh.
not like really pro Harris. We're just pro
Right.
Harris in the situation where
I'm
it's
absolutely
Harris
pro
or
Harris
Biden.
2024.
Right.
You know, and yeah, I'm
And
behind
vote
her.
down
and
ballot, damn you.
Absolutely, vote down ballot, vote down ballot. The Senate confirms SCOTUS picks. The president nominates them.
And your local representatives determine if you're going to be apparently in the South where your abortion ban sits.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, take that into consideration.
The local candidates have 1,000% more influence on your life than anybody on the national stage. So,
I'm going to say it again and again.
yep. Vote down ballot. Vote all the way down to school board and city council and mayor and all that shit. Vote all the way down ballot. But yeah, no, I'm feeling much better than I was a couple weeks ago about this election as a whole, and I'm looking forward optimistically more than I think I have in a long time. So
In the last year, probably.
for sure. So absolutely, I think that's where we're gonna end it. Once again, always buy merch offjawagon.com. We got Let Them Eat Toast merch. We've got Off Jawagon merch that helps us pay the bills here. Helps us
Keeps
keep
those
the
lights on.
If you just want to send us money, we've got those availabilities too.
Yep.
And then
Patreon, YouTube memberships.
Yep,
We're
got
trying to add
subscriptions.
more specific content to that as more people join. So,
but if nothing else, we appreciate you guys just tuning in, listening, watching. If you watch on YouTube,
sharing, subscribing.
Yep.
Love it.
We love it. We love all of your guys' interactions, your comments. If there's anything you guys ever want us to cover, feel free to let us know. And if it's something we can, bullshit about for an hour and a half and keep it halfway interesting, we'll definitely do our best to do that. But yeah, we love you guys. We love you guys giving us the opportunity to do this, and we'll see you next week.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in.